Podcasts proudly presents The Broadcasters Podcast. A weekly media commentary talking about traditional and digital media headlines and talking to the content creators out front and behind the scenes. Here is the king of podcasts.
It doesn't feel like it so much, but we are stepping into the holiday season. And holiday season usually gives us movies to go and look forward to and really enjoy. But for whatever reason, we're not getting that this year. It's not good. And that's how we started tonight's Broadcasters Podcast. Thanks for being here with me. Yours truly, the king of podcasts, here with you. So on tonight's program, we're going to go through a number of issues that the digital disruption and the pandemic continue to do to plague and to punish entertainment on a regular basis, as we are being pushed forward from traditional methods of consumption of our media and entertainment into the digital stream. More access and less exclusivity. It's going to hurt the corporates. And in a way, I feel bad because there are certain things where I like the exclusiveness of certain movies. Because movies, at least when you watch them on a big screen, there is something to be said of the experience you get from it. I know it's hard for people to understand that, because some people are really accustomed to just watching anything they want from TV in their living room in the comfort of their own couch. I get that part. But for me, when I did get to go see Tenet back in September, the only movie I got to see in the short window of time that the Regal Cinema next to my house was open. Well, I did get to see Tenet. And I'll tell you, watching it on the RPX was really wonderful. And it was great. I was like, wow, good stuff. And I enjoyed it. And I'll tell you, watching it with all the action and everything, it wasn't the best of the best. Like, it was a good, solid B movie. But for me, I really enjoyed just getting back, enjoying my Friday nights in the movie theater and watching all new movies coming out on a regular basis. But again, we're not getting that at all. More movie theaters, whatever reason, we are getting the continuous effect of the coronavirus. Are we getting anything where it shows us that we're getting many more deaths? No. Many more hospitalizations? No. More infections? Yes. And that's what's scaring most people to go ahead and say, okay, New York, California, we're going to put you back under lockdown in some way, shape, or form. So lockdown's being pulled back, rolling back lockdown measures. California, as I record tonight, is now instilling a 10 p.m. curfew around most of the state. So there's not much more you can do when you're getting these kind of things going on. It just sucks. Now, as of this week, we are getting a second week of the movie Freaky, which stars Vince Vaughn. And it's a wide release. It's a Blumhouse film, if I'm correct. And it's, right now, pandemic restrictions are taking a toll on films currently playing. Theater counts are declining in the hundreds. There's a new wide release going out this weekend with Jackie Chan called Vanguard. It's only going to open in 1,376 movies. Then the other movies that you have that are also moving along and doing well in this pandemic era of the movie theaters, you have Let 'Em Go, The War with Grandpa, still occupying on the list in this past weekend. Walt Disney put out Guardians of the Galaxy and reissued it out for people to watch in theaters. And The Santa Claus, starring Tim Allen, is back out in movie theaters as well. We do know there's a movie coming out called The Croods: A New Age from Universal Pictures that will be wide release this weekend. It's only going to make it to 2,200 theaters, which is less than half of the normal amount of theaters it would normally make if it was a widescreen release. But that's where we are. And that sucks a lot. Here's what we got at the moment in the box office when I look at it all together. This past weekend, week of November 13th, Freaky was the highest grossing film in its first week, only getting $3.6 million. Wow, that's horrible. Let 'Em Go has made $6.8 million to be second place and $1.7 million last weekend. Then you have Come and Play, Honest Thief, and Tenet. And Tenet, by the way, the last time I checked, it got up to $56 million in 11 weeks on screen. And as for the worldwide push for the movie, it got up to $353 million. So it definitely made it past its financials. The production budget was $205 million. So it definitely broke past it. It definitely broke past thanks to international box office. Now, how much could the movie have made if it was going to be domestic, full-fledged? Probably another $100 million. At the moment, it's not gone on video yet, so we're waiting for that. See if it comes up to that point, but they're still keeping it out in theaters, seeing if they can keep the long ride through and see if it'll make some money in the meantime. But for right now, it does continue to make a little bit of money. It made $735,000 this past weekend. And again, it's not great, but at least it's something. And I mean, there's not much you can do about what they're doing right now. It's a tough time for them, and there's not a lot of new movies to go up against, and very limited places to go. Again, we haven't had a chance to see this full-fledged to say drive-ins or to regular theaters at all. It's not been out there. Now, as for the release schedule, that's another story, which we're going to go into focus on right now. There's just not much with it. Not much at all. As we said, Vanguard is the only widescreen movie that's coming out this weekend. And then we have to wait until December to see other widescreen releases. But again, they come very limited if they do. When we start seeing a couple of widescreen releases, it will be December 25th, Christmas night. With that said, we'll have 4 movies that will be coming out. Monster Hunter, News of the World, Promising Young Woman, and a focus on my first story tonight, Wonder Woman 1984, which will be out in widescreen release and IMAX. Well, the movie we're learning about now, it will be on Christmas Day after all. After much speculation, Variety.com is reporting that the superhero sequel will debut on HBO Max the same day it will open in U.S. movie theaters. And as for international viewers, if you want to go and catch the movie, it will be available internationally 1 week earlier on December 16th. And the film will stream on HBO Max for a month at no additional cost to subscribers. So you get HBO Max subscription. They're putting this movie out there without a cost. No premium price to it. That is amazing that they're going to do that. That's a big get to offer such a movie out there for HBO Max subscribers. A real pull to get people to the streaming. As we see this year, at the end of this year, we're wrapping things up for 2020, which we can't wait to finish up. What we definitely see right now is the corporate types, a lot of layoffs this year and a lot of restructuring of all the major networks and studios, all these large media conglomerates. They're downsizing, micromanaging, changing up some divisions, definitely dealing with the issues of they're not going to rely so much on the traditional outlets to monetize. They're going to monetize their streaming properties, their digital properties. That's what they want to do. Make sure they get the content out and make sure they can also get it to people in a more convenient fashion. Is that going to take away some of the luster or some of the price tag of the movies? Well, they're banking on the fact that they think that more people, since they're not going to the theaters, they're going to start spending more money on streaming. And Disney Plus is already showing that they're getting to something like that, because Disney Plus, in its initial run, has already gotten to 73 million subscribers. Now, how many of those are getting free subscriptions for a year, maybe through a cell phone plan or something like that? We don't know. But again, they're getting that. And they might be able to retain quite a few of those people with what they're doing. Now, here's what we got. The decision to forego a traditional theatrical release is surprising, because Wonder Woman 1984 was expected to be one of the biggest films of 2020, had the potential to surpass $1 billion in ticket sales. A $200 million budgeted movie, by the way, as well. We're seeing this in the same vein, right? But with the coronavirus crisis, many were skeptical that Wonder Woman 1984 could keep its Christmas Day release date, since 50% of cinemas are closed and people are still hesitant to see a movie in theaters. And because of that, we saw many movies that would have been run in 2020 pushed back. No Time to Die, Fast and Furious 9, Black Widow, all pushed back the next year. What we did see this year was early on, back in March, we started seeing some movies like Trolls World Tour go to digital rental. And then movies like Scoob would go then immediately to premium video on demand. And The Witch is also going to HBO Max instead of going for a theatrical release. Though not ideal for theater owners, this hybrid release plan, remember AMC had an issue with Universal Studios about shortening the theatrical window for the movies. And now they're saying, well, forget about that. We're just going to go ahead and cut it down and go simultaneous HBO Max with this Warner Brothers picture. Normally, major cinema chains would refuse to showcase a big movie that's debuting simultaneously in theaters and at home. But months into a global health crisis that has no end in sight, many theater operators are struggling to make ends meet, and they're desperate for new product to show. Well, you do have to understand, the media that portrays the panic of this, we're seeing a lot of conflicting reports as to if we still need all these lockdowns, if we still need all these health measures, the distancing, the masks, all of this. Now, I'm not here to go ahead and say that we don't need it. I'm saying there are disputes, and they should be accounted for. There are scientists, there are medical professionals that are saying the otherwise, that there are therapeutics, and now we have a vaccine coming soon, and when the vaccine comes in, that should be able to go ahead and kind of lift, it should be able to go ahead and lift some of the measures that are being put upon people in this public health measure. There should be a chance to go ahead and say, okay, if people are getting vaccinated, people are getting medicated, if they're being treated so they can go ahead and withstand, then why the need for the masks, right? Why the need for the social distancing? Again, if you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the data, the statistics, that's what you're asking for. And then that's what determines if you decide to bring in movie theaters and bring them back. And some of these cases, you're seeing movie theaters, again, 50% are open. And then again, those movie theaters that are open are making some money. So at what point do you say, okay, maybe it's time to open things up a little bit more? The media is going to be able to want to do. There's a construct that I'm not going to get into that's very political as to why this is being done. But that's another story. Now, Warner Media Studios, which is pushing out the superhero sequel. Here's the thing why they can do this. This is the reason why they can go and pull out the simultaneous push out through theatrical and HBO Max. Here's what they did. Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar emphasized the company's commitment to the exhibition community. And theater operators were especially grateful to Warner Brothers during the pandemic because they did take a bold bet in opening Christopher Nolan's Tenet in cinemas despite enormous headwinds facing the box office. Because Tenet was going to make its money. It has. Has it made as much as it could have been? No. I mean, look, it could have very well made over $500 million, but it can still do that. It's still going to be possible to do that. I don't know how much money it would have made extra, but people obviously went to go see it. I mean, it did get people to buy tickets for it wherever they could. Kilar said in a statement, quote, "We believe in theaters because hundreds of millions of fans around the world value going to the movies." And that's like me, Jason. And as long as fans seek out the theatrical experience, we will be there to serve them with great movies in partnership with exhibitors. So they're going to still hold on to that. Now, here's what's going on. Debuting Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max instead of postponing the film until next year means foregoing substantial box office returns. But the hope is that offering a splashy tentpole like Wonder Woman 1984 will drive subscribers to HBO Max, which is struggling to compete against Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney+. HBO Max has a cost of $15 a month. Well, it doesn't help much right now is, if I'm correct, HBO Max still does not have any availability on Amazon Prime or other places. I mean, I still can't get it on my Amazon stick. And I don't know if it's still available on Roku or not, but I haven't checked yet. But as far as I know, they have not gotten the Amazon Fire Stick yet, and I'm waiting for that. So let me look. What devices work with HBO? Here's your question. Oh, so now we have HBO Max. Thank you very much. That's good. They finally did that. But it took like 5 months to get there. Remember, I think it opened up in May and we were just waiting for it to get back. So I'm going to try to finally go ahead and download it and start looking at some stuff on there. How about that? Now, as we know, Wonder Woman, the original, $800 million at the global box office. One of the rare comic book movies with a female superhero spotlighted. And it became a very important property for Warner Brothers. And so the movies that got skipped this year, that got pushed to digital, I wish I knew how much they were making and how well they did as a result of this. I don't know. I haven't been able to find out yet, but I'd like to find out how that's going to turn out. In the meantime, while that's going on, speaking of tentpole movies, Disney is looking to do the same thing. They have a number of movies that might go from theatrical to Disney Plus premieres. The story from Deadline.com. No final decision has been made, but Deadline is hearing that the uncertainty of the future theatrical marketplace has Disney looking at a number of upcoming family films to go to Disney Plus instead of theatrical release. The movies that might be pivoted will be Cruella, the Craig Gillespie directed live-action reimaging of the animated classic 101 Dalmatians that stars Emma Stone and Emma Thompson. And then you have a Pinocchio, which will star Tom Hanks, which is directed by Robert Zemeckis, and Peter Pan and Wendy, the David Lowery directed film that has Grownish star Yahara Shahidi to set to play Tinkerbell. So there's no word at the moment whether the films will be offered free to Disney Plus subscribers, like they did with the Pixar movie film Soul, which was supposed to come out, I think it was in October, which got pushed over, or for a premium charge like they did with Mulan. It's still a bombshell development in the fast-moving theatrical streaming landscape. And again, it's the matter of what HBO Max is doing is offering it at a free cost, 30-day free rental, basically. That is what it really is, to try to get as many subscribers as possible to go over there. And sometimes it's just as much as having the shows that that are on HBO and Cinemax, and some of the new shows you're promoting, which are looking like some really great shows they're putting up on HBO Max, plus the power of HBO and their library. They're doing all of that and hoping that a movie like Wonder Woman will bring people over to the dance and say, hey, we want to watch this. And there you go. Then there's the issue, if you're going to go ahead and move it over to a streaming service, how much are you going to charge? Because remember, Mulan was being priced for $29.99. You're not renting it, you're buying it. But you're not even buying it because I don't even know if you get to keep that while you have it on the service. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure what goes on with that, but it does suck. But that's what they're trying to do. It's unfortunate, but this is where we are with things. And at the moment, there are movies that are getting set up to go ahead and start coming out in January. So what's happening right now is it looks like the movie theaters are the movie studios are kind of hoping that, if they push themselves out to January, the vaccine will already come out, more movie theaters will be reopened, and we'll have a better chance to get some more movies to come out. So with that said, we look at what they're going to be doing next. You'll have movies starting out on January 8th, where you'll have multiple widescreen releases after that. After December 25th, we start seeing movies come out regularly in a certain amount. Now, can they be pushed back? Sure. And again, it's January and February, which these movies, it doesn't make a difference for some of these movies to go ahead and be pushed out in January or February because they're not, you don't put a lot of big screen movies in January and February because after the holidays, nobody wants to spend money on movies, which is understood. It's not until you really get later into the year, right when you get into March, is when you start seeing movies really pick up. Because again, you start seeing the movies are going to be really picking up. You see Tom and Jerry, a live action version. You'll have a big Disney film, Raya and the Last Dragon. The Many Saints of Newark, which is the Sopranos follow-up or the prequel. And Morbius, which is we were going to see that last year and that got pushed over. And then No Time to Die comes into April, and then hopefully by then we start seeing a lot of movies coming out in the spring, and by then we hope that the pandemic will have subsided to a point where movies will be a popular thing to go to again. Because again, Peter Rabbit 2, Bob's Burgers, No Time to Die, April 2nd, April 9th, Bob's Burgers. Fatherhood, you have The Asset, Last Night in Soho, A Quiet Place Part 2, coming in at the end of April. Black Widow comes out May 7th. And some of the other highlights, Godzilla vs. Kong on May 21st. Cruella, if they decide to go and take it off their schedule, or Raya and the Last Dragon, they would move to Disney Plus. But again, they don't know yet. F9, The Fast Saga, May 28th. Conjuring, another Conjuring on the June 4th. Ghostbusters Afterlife, June 11th. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, June 25th. Minions, The Rise of Gru, and Top Gun Maverick on the same weekend of July 4th weekend, July 2nd. The Forever Purge, the weekend after that, July 9th. A New Space Jam, July 16th. Jungle Cruise, July 30th. That's Emily Blunt and Dwayne The Rock Johnson, if I'm correct. Hotel Transylvania 4. Suicide Squad, August 6th. Deep Water, August 13th. Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Another Hitman. How about that? August 20th. Candyman, another reissue. August 27th. So it's a remake. Jackass 4, September 3rd. Dune, which would have been in December, will be October 1st. Addams Family 2, which is another animated, October 22nd. G.I. Joe Origins Snake Eyes, October 22nd. Clifford the Big Red Dog in a widescreen release, November 5th. Mission Impossible 7, November 19th. Woo! Some big movies coming out. Then West Side Story, which would have been for 2020, goes to December 10th, 2021. Matrix 4 in December 22nd. Sherlock Holmes scheduled for December 22nd of 2021. So we have movies to look forward to and others that could get pushed back up depending on what happens to the schedule, which we'll find out. Death on the Nile has yet to be put into a place. All Rise has yet to be put someplace. Escape Room 2. We also have another Tomb Raider. And other movies that are yet to be pushed out somewhere. Where will they be? So we're waiting. The movie theaters, listen, they're going to find their way to put some movies out. And what will be interesting is we'll see another big movie come out Christmas Day. I don't know if it's going to make much of a difference, if people will still go to the movie theaters to go watch it. Because are they going to want to go ahead and subscribe to HBO Max when they won't be available for 30 days? Again, the movie will be available for 30 days to watch, but you will still have to subscribe for $14.99 for HBO Max to get that. Just keep that in mind. Coming up on the second half of the Broadcasters Podcast in about 20 minutes, I will conclude my interview with Lauren Conlin. You might remember last week I was interviewing her. She's an entertainment reporter and host of the Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast, which you can find at Off the Carpet or on thecarpet.com. On thecarpet.com. So we'll go ahead and check out the interview a little bit later on. Make sure to stay tuned for that. Meantime, I gotta say this, man. MTV really, they S the bed. I don't understand why they do not decide to go ahead and put back on music videos. Why that's not included. But this is an interesting story that's got to be said. If you had to ask, what is the biggest streaming music platform on the planet? It's not Spotify. It's not iTunes. It's YouTube. Now, their global head of music, Lyra Cohen, announced in a blog post that more than 2 billion logged-in YouTube users are now playing music on the platform each month. It's more than the 320 million monthly active users who pressed play on a track on Spotify in the third quarter. And more than 50% of logged-in viewers who consume music in a day consume more than 10 minutes of music as of June 2020. So, logged-in viewers are consuming more than one track via YouTube during their listening and viewing sessions because it's free. Music rights holders, of course, will want to see how this vastness of listening behavior matches up with the amount of ad dollars paid out to labels, artists, publishers, and songwriters. But we see that makes a difference because remember, yeah, they might talk about the money they're making off of that. Well, they're making money off of the advertising that rolls before their music videos. But what they are getting as well is that every time a video drops for a particular artist, videos always help to bring them up the charts. So getting them back up the charts, getting them back up will help in sales, will help in streaming, will help them also to monetize off of that as well. And push them into possible radio play, which is what they all want. Because somehow there's something about getting more money off of that. And keeping their music relevant in the space. Now, YouTube has announced some positive news on that score with the launch of audio advertising on its platform for the first time. YouTube explains that, quote, audio ads are characterized by creatives where the audio soundtrack plays a starring role in your delivering your message. The visual component is still typically a still image or simple animation. Now, the audio ads are not going to be the majority of business on YouTube, and they're saying that 85% of music listening on its platform takes place in the foreground of users' devices, and that 15% of music listening occurs when the user isn't watching a video. For YouTube, tell you what, it's something special. They have generated over $5 billion for total advertising in third quarter. It's a lot of money. They're also launching dynamic music lineups, which give advertisers the opportunity to target audiences based on a dedicated group of music-focused channels across popular genres such as Latin music, K-pop, hip-hop, and the top 100, as well as moods or interests like fitness. That's also what they have as well. Now, what's really interesting as well, I never thought about it, but YouTube has their own chart of what songs do well, and I never really thought about it, but I'm glad that this Music Business Worldwide article actually mentioned it, so I can actually go ahead and bookmark this particular thing in my spot. Thank you very much. It really helps to see this. And so, top 5 songs for those of you that listen on YouTube or watch on YouTube. BTS Dynamite right now is still 12 weeks on this particular chart, number 5. 23.3 million views. Then there's a Bollywood song, which I'm not even going to try to go and say the name. It's Guru Randhawa featuring Nora Fatehi, Naish Bakachi, Nikita Gandhi, and someone else. The T-Series, that's got 25 million views. Future's Life is Good, a music video featuring Drake, and that's been on for 44 weeks. Still what was a top 100 song on the Billboard Hot 100, but finally dropped off. Camilo's Vida de Rico is number 2, 30 million streams. And right now, the current song that is the most streams right now is the current number 2 in the country on that Billboard Hot 100 this past week. 53 million views for Bad Bunny J. Cortez with Takiti, which now has a new video for it. There you go. Big stuff. A very global chart, if you will. Now, Lauren Conlin continues on a theme, writing about the possibilities for music-related advertising on YouTube in the future, encouraging major music right holders to come together with YouTube and go pitch Madison Avenue together. He says, quote, as I talk to folks in the industry, I know there are often misconceptions about how people engage with music and music's content ability to drive results. In all my years in the business, I can tell you this. Music moves and shapes culture, communities, and people. For advertisers, it's a reliable and untapped way to capture an audience that's engaging with videos they truly love. What does radio... Who needs radio when you have YouTube? Seriously. Look at what this does. YouTube, again, free model. Get it on an app. Pretty easy to go and stream through data or through Wi-Fi. And radio doesn't get why they're so far behind and why they're failing. They don't get it. God, it would be so easy for them to figure this out. They just got to play the songs that everybody else is playing that are streaming. Well, we've talked about a couple of enterprise-type programmers that are doing that, but it's not enough. They need to break on the old mold and get back to normal ideas here. Again, much like the movies, okay, simultaneous release. Then simultaneously release the songs with the songs getting charted. Guys, corporate radio programmers, why don't you do that? Would help yourselves a lot. There is a premium service that YouTube tries to put out there, but again, they got 2 billion logged in music viewers. 30 million subscribers make up their percentage of their YouTube premium platform, which again, I wouldn't buy either because it's just not enough, not just worth it. I don't care. It's not enough for me to take the ads out. Not really isn't. One of the story I want to bring up before we go and wrap things up here on the podcast, and we go to my interview with Lauren Conlin to wrap that up, part 2 with her, is a journalism article I found from the Columbia Journalism Review, An Industry in Flux. I thought this was actually quite interesting. A couple of things they brought up in here where we have things. According to the Pew Research Center, Since the recession, American newspapers jobs have fallen 51%. It's about the pandemic, by the way. Well, actually, that was the recession of 2009. The spread of the coronavirus pandemic has killed close to 240,000 Americans, cost some 30 million their jobs, and including at least 36,000 people in the journalism industry. Editors have taken pay cuts, others were laid off, a few outlets are shuttered. Reporters were cast out by the dozen. Now the winter's upon us, pandemic is worsening. Well, with the way the conditions are being put and portrayed, that's what they're saying. So stakes for news and advertising revenue and subscriptions are going to be dire. Many small newsrooms have received federal bailout money, but the prospect of another tranche is grim. Also, the politics of Washington are also going to be an overlying factor. Across the country, they say, journalism is grappling with these challenges for years, even as many of us have been distracted by chaos coming from our politics. So the situation should be treated as an opportunity. Our industry, and one of critical public importance, needs to be rebuilt and reconceived. What do we want to keep, and what should we let go of? How should we think about our storytelling, and who gets to tell those stories? Where do we belong, and where should we go next? And this is where they bring up their story. So here's one thing I got to tell you. There's a lot of news outlets out there. Citizen journalism is growing. Local journalism is going in a different form. And maybe these corporations are not what we need anymore. Well, here's one of the things they're talking about that's very new. And you might not have heard about this, but for those of you that are content creators and want to be in journalism and want to make a name for yourself, well, of course, there's Medium out there. There's other places you can go to blog or put your blogs out there and put out information. Sure. So here's an idea. And this is an idea I think that works best that CGR really does talk about. And I do think that this thought process right here by Kyle Pope of CGR is absolutely on point. First, the rise of the individual and the decline of institutions. Yes. Corporate. They do not know how to handle news reporting, journalism in general. They bastardize it. They sensationalize it. They make it tabloid-like. Clickbait. We've seen this over and over again. We just saw, HuffPost is going to get bought out by Vox, I think it is. I forget. There's another deal where there's another merge, right? And for what? How long will that last? Remember, we had the Gizmodo Group buy out all these different publications. We have now the merger in the same company of Billboard and Rolling Stone. Remember that? We're seeing all the consolidation and so much more. But here's the thing. This is an interesting part of the story. Many of us would love to work for a big, stable company with hefty benefits, and I don't. And some of you might like that, might like the cushion, the comfort, but I don't want to have that. I want to have that entrepreneurial spirit. I want to be able to have the opening to go ahead and do other things because I've done this for 15 years without the corporate sense. I've worked in a small business outlet, and I love it. Being able to have control and some autonomy over what I'm doing is wonderful. It's refreshing. It's liberating. Which is what I want. I want to be able to be an advocate of free speech, and I want to be able to have free speech of my own. Now, what I do want to make sure of is I don't try to get myself into avenues that are going to be very controversial to where I'm going to get some blowback for it. I mean, I could do that, but why? There's other people that are ready to do that story. If I felt the need to go and be compelled to do it, then that'd be another story. But again, there's a lot of people that are doing right in journalism and being good investigators and being good reporters. What's the whole point is, it's not so much that people want to have a big, stable company with hefty benefits. It's that your audience, your consumers, still like the flashy graphics and the chyrons and want to be able to watch their TV, their news on a television through network or cable. So some people still want to do that. But that's an older generation. The newer generation is not. They're going through YouTube. They're going through other channels. So there's other ways to monetize than going the old subscription route or putting yourself up behind a paywall. But companies like that don't exist much anymore in journalism, and they shouldn't. And the reason why is because they failed. They failed to stay to the integrity, to the standards of journalism, journalistic integrity. They failed. In some cases, they wanted to censor. They also didn't want to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion in their own rights. Be honest. How many publishers are actually doing something about that within their own houses, or they're just placating and capitulating and being an ally? Because that's what they're trying to do. Those that do are often beset by the troubles of any American institution, racism, sexism, and equity. They're not wrong. Lately, more journalists are deciding to go independent. Cleo Chang reported in her profile Substack, the result is a proliferation of emerging voices, who sometimes earn paychecks that dwarf what they can make in a newsroom, but opportunity is never universal. The people succeeding on their own are largely those who already rose to prominence within existing systems. On Substack, the most popular newsletters are primarily by conservative or otherwise contrarian white men. The same people tend to be the most comfortable working without a net. But, you can say whatever you want about who is writing on here, but Substack is open to everybody. And for those people that are established, that used to work in an establishment, they get out. And then they move along and do something else. Why not? What a good idea. I agree. If you're taking it, listen, this is where podcasting works the same way. How many established people do we know of that had radio shows that decided to go to podcasting? Same thing. Or start their own YouTube show or whatever they might want. Again, people that get some kind of popularity or get some kind of an audience, they want to continue to engage. So yes, use the internet as you want. Use TikTok, use social media, use the blog systems out there, use the video audio platforms. Absolutely. Why not? Others have found a home on Twitter and on YouTube. Individuals with large followings at a time to devote to research are seizing the opportunity to challenge the dominance of mainstream outlets. That's wonderful. And they're absolutely right. We're also seeing newsrooms recenter themselves in their communities. As local newspapers have disappeared, media chains have consolidated coverage into regional hubs, which place reporters far away from the governments and institutions that demand their attention. A movement is growing to reestablish the bond between news outlets and their readers, and to shed some of journalism's oldest tenets in the process. Another recurring theme has been the strength of the organized and outspoken worker. Data from the colleagues of the TOE Center for Digital Journalism and the International Center for Journalists did an epic survey of news workers in the wake of the pandemic. That's professionally weary yet determined. So the Los Angeles Times, Washington Post, Philadelphia Inquirer, NPR, and elsewhere, journalists have confronted their managers about the exclusion of Black, Latinx, or Latino, Indigenous, and other people of color in terms of bylines and for whom stories are written. Well, it's the same idea with the studios. You want to have a makeup of who's actually out there. And this is the thing that's got to be said, too. Keep this in mind. When you look at the big cable network outlets, the coastal outlets that are in New York, Los Angeles, Hollywood, and what have you, Washington, D.C., how much ethnicity, diversity, equity, and inclusion are in those institutions? The ones that are reporting on the said diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I'm pretty sure people are asking for is, let's have a proper representation, a proper makeup of the actual audience. I don't think there's something wrong with that. And again, you can find that makeup and representation and bring that mixture of minds and ideas and experiences to the forefront. Absolutely. I agree. But you let them make sure they stick to a particular code of integrity. There should be a journalistic code that is adhered to, that is not opinion-based. You earn the right to be an opinion columnist. But first, you break your bones, you write the news, you report. News workers aim to seize the moment while bosses compelled to do moral good but calculating the economic losses of a global pandemic were caught in the crisis of indecision. Unions, which also doesn't help much, have made newsroom diversity a central plank of their negotiations. There also is a need for new ownership models. First came the news conglomerate, then the chain, then private equity and hedge funds. Again, this is what radio's gone through. Just look at iHeartRadio. Great example. How does that work for you? So these companies will do the same thing. They will go into debt. The media industry, the Savannah Jacobson outlines in a graphic in this story, says, quote, the media industry shift from an advertising-based business to one reliant on subscribers and benefactors has critical implications for the form and veracity of coverage. And looking at who is investing in what, we can observe what seems most promising and what risks sacrificing journalistic independence. Nonprofits will play an ever-increasing role, and the notion of public funding for journalism by the likes of PBS, NPR, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting now looks increasingly appealing. I like this story. There's a lot of, of course they add some injecting politics into it, but again, there's a lot of good nuggets of information that come out of this story. An industry in flux. Again, all the stories I talk about here, on all the programs, by the way, I always post the links in the description. You can find all this at broadcasterspodcast.com. If you're looking for it, go to broadcasterspodcast.com. It's all there for you laid out. Perfect for you to go and consume. That said, it's time for me to go ahead and go into part 2 of my interview with Lauren Conlin, an expert, established entertainment reporter. You might have seen her on the red carpet, speaking to a lot of major stars, especially in New York City, where she is based. She's also the host of the Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast, which you can find more information about that at onthecarpet.com. So go ahead and check out this interview my conclusion of my interview with Lauren Conlin of the Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast here on the Broadcasters Podcast. I don't think it's so much where, you could, the Broadway types, the movie types could try to not push everything so far back, assuming that, they need a ramp to get things back up because they're afraid of losing money. I understand that part. And, the movie theaters, they did try to get a little bit of a start up again. Tenet became a movie that was the first test to see, can it be a movie that can come out and make significant money and bring people back to the theaters? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit, how it only did so much. And again, that's where I'm thinking, where summer stock becomes a thing more, or there's other places where they do off Broadway. I know South Florida, we have a number of performing arts theaters that are now being reopened. So down here where I'm at, the Kravis Center is a great place to go. Or, if you want to find, ballet or theater or dance or just things like that, I think there's other spots where it's going to be at. But then again, just like New York City, Vegas is also hurting the same way. So that kind of entertainment to have, it's just not there. And it's just a tough spot. Now, moving along, go ahead.
You can't recreate. I was say you can't recreate Broadway, right? That's why it will be back, right? It will be strong. It will be back because that's something that you cannot recreate. So I think that is sort of what we should keep in mind is knowing that it will be back. It's not going to go away. We just don't know. We just don't know when it's coming back.
Yeah.
and what what it's going to look like. That's all.
So I want to ask about this, because I don't know how much importance it is for what you do for being on location there, if you don't have the red carpets right away to go with. So I know you do a lot of work when it comes to theater, and also with the work you do with Magic Shack, the marketing firm. So just as a possibility, where do you think the work could go if the theater scene takes too long to come back, in your opinion? And also then, more importantly, which I kind of asked, but would it prompt any changes on your end and what your team is doing on covering Broadway or covering the industry itself? Would you ever feel a need to relocate just for the sake of business? Because you'd have to to get yourself out there once again and have that presence, you'd have to go on the road, and you might have to find somewhere outside of New York City. Would that be a possibility? Would that be something you'd have to think about?
So it's not super necessary because for Magic Shack, we've been hired to do national tours and we've traveled. Okay. We did Beautiful. We traveled to whatever city the cast was in. We did Summer, the Donna Summer show. We did that in Boston. So we travel. I don't think it's necessary for us to relocate. We also do a lot of corporate marketing shoots as well. So it's not just Broadway and film, but it's interesting just because at the start of COVID also, we received a lot of inquiries about editing. So I don't know if you remember this, but there was like this Saturday Night Seder that a bunch of different Broadway actors did, and they were singing. Yeah. So we edited that. And then there was Stephen Sondheim's birthday through Broadway.com, which was like a huge big deal. Mm-hmm. And we edited part of that. I think it was, I don't remember the exact song that we edited, but so there's a lot of things that we are doing that keeps us afloat. And we don't necessarily have to be in New York City at the moment. We could be quarantined somewhere else, especially because, like you said, there's no red carpets, there's no press days. But for me personally, being in New York City allows me to still, what's the word I'm looking for? I can still sort of rub elbows with people. I can still do
network, yeah.
I can still network. I can still do in-person appearances at radio stations. Some of the news stations are not taking people, in person right now, but it's always good for me to say, hey, I can still come down, if you need me. If you don't want to do it on Skype, I'm right here. I'm local.
Yeah.
So, it's nice.
Okay. Because it would be, for me, I can see where there's a lot of things when it comes to negotiations. Obviously, any kind of office work that can still be done from remote. So the thing is, I guess the only thing would be helpful is that you don't probably have to do too much of the grind of getting to offices up and back, and the kind of traffic you probably have now has probably gotten a little bit easier to get by, I would imagine. So there's, again, the time saved is definitely something that you have. It's just I was thinking of the fact that there are projects that you wanted to do that, if those were projects that really helped even for us, what I do with my full-time work, run a new media company that does online radio, podcasting, trade shows, and parties. And when we don't have the conferences to work at or the events to go and throw, and that will be pretty good money makers, again, is trying to find what can we do to kind of keep afloat. And that's exactly what it's, again, we had to go and kind of just reset and just reorganize and say, okay, we're still making money here, but what else can we do to make more? And, some of the things we've kind of saved on. So we've been able to work effectively as a remote outlet. So it's worked out for us. So, being in the office,
that's
things
great
come like
to
that
hear.
happen. Yeah.
That's so great to hear.
Thank you. And I hope that's the same thing for you guys as well. So while some states have started to reopen, I want to talk about movies now. And movie exhibitions or the theaters, they have attempted to restart. Studios started beginning to postpone big releases needed to draw audiences to theaters, since depressing theatrical revenue around the world, putting the industry's future in question. My theater chain that I have right next to my house, Regal Cinemas at Cinema World, they shut down once again. I guess they come back in December. And that was because of the No Time to Die Bond movie being pushed back the next year, among everything else that's being pushed back. Everybody's a bit of a panic.
Right.
Nothing's going to come back. AMC Theaters right now is being creative. They're staying open now. They're renting out individual theaters for screening. So that's pretty smart. I can give them some credit there.
I saw that like $100 or something.
Right. And I wonder what movies you can watch on the screen, which is actually, that's kind of like a good idea. And if they give you, if it's a party room and they give you popcorn and all the concessions, that's a great deal.
Yes.
That's a great deal. I would do that.
I am so all about that. I miss movie theaters so much.
I did go see Tenet, and I watched it on the big, their version of an IMAX, the RPX. Was so great to go. I did not mind the mask. It was so clean in there. But again, no other new movies to watch. It was the fun. Yeah. No other new movies to watch. And it was the first time. And I'm a person that watches movies on opening night, 45 movies a year. I have a subscription to Regal. That's how big in the movie.
So do I. I have an AMC. I'm a Stubbs member.
And AMC's awesome too. Let me tell you, just the one I have is in downtown where I'm at, and a little bit far. If they still ran later movies, but now the thing is, even when the movies came back up, they were closing early and things like that. So it's just a little bit tougher. So I want to ask them now, how radical has publicity been by the studios? Because obviously they're changing movies up. Movies are being brought up. Maybe some independent flicks. Things that are out there. I mean, I know there's nothing out for your consideration. And by this time right now, you think they will be out, I guess, right? So
yes, but let me just tell you, there are a lot more movies for you to watch than you think. So I am with you. I am always at the movies, opening night or, opening weekend. Let's say I'm more of like a go to the movies by myself person on like a Sunday afternoon. I don't know.
Nice.
That's one of my favorite things to do. And I truly believe, just like, the Academy believes, that there's no other place that's more magical than a movie theater to watch a film. Right. There have been a few movies. I don't know if you saw The 24th. Did you see that?
No,
Do you know which film I'm talking about? No. Okay.
I have to go looking. Sorry.
Well, that one is it's written by Oscar winner Kevin Willmott, who also wrote Black Klansman. He also wrote Five Bloods. He's basically Spike Lee's partner. I watched that, and I was thinking to myself, this would be so incredible to watch in a movie theater. It's a bloody movie with, it's so good. I was just like, this would be so much better in a theater. But anyway, the independent films are making way more of a push right now for press. So I don't know. I think something really funny is, I don't know on Instagram or Twitter, but if you follow like support indie films, like hashtag independent films, hashtag indie films, it really gives you a lot of information on movies that are coming out. And I actually really pride myself and my podcast on shedding light, for independent films. So they get watched because so many actors and actresses do these movies because they can't always get studio films, and nor do they always want studio films.
Right.
Sometimes they prefer independent films because they have more of a creative say, and they have there's more time to, work on scenes and do things on your own. And this is all things that I've gathered from talking to different actors and actresses and directors, throughout the last year. So I will say, there have been, and I don't know if you've seen them, but there have been some great films that came out, like The 24th, like The Vanished, which is a movie with Anne Heche and Thomas Jane.
Oh.
That one was so entertaining. Antebellum with Janelle Monáe. That was incredible. I was like, oh my gosh. So I think that the films are out there. They really are. You just have to really pay attention at this point. And you got to just give it a shot. Even though it's, it doesn't say Paramount or Universal, you got to give it a shot.
No, I agree. My thing is watching from home. It wasn't during the pandemic. I finally learned that my Amazon Fire Stick, I can actually connect Bluetooth headphones to, which was the best thing that could have happened to me to give me the sound that I want of a movie theater. But I don't have the attention span to sit on my couch or on my lazy boy and watch a movie. I have to be in the theater, so I don't have any other reason but to sit and watch the movie. That's my hardest problem.
I totally get you. Oh my gosh, I so get you.
I'm a workaholic, so I have my computer in front of me and I'm looking up. So if I'm going to look up, you got to give me a reason to like put my computer table away.
Yeah.
So I will actually sit up, put my ottoman up and watch a flick and grab some popcorn, all of that. Like I have to have the whole experience.
Yes.
So it is tough. And it's unfortunate.
That's a great point. Some people really do need the whole experience. And while I miss it, I still, I'm still going to watch movies. But again, I have a different issue. I'm more like I fall asleep really easily during movies. So if I'm not in a theater, I will say it takes me like, I have to like either buy it or make sure I rent it for 2 days or 3 days because it'll take me 2 times to get through it because I just pass out. So
well, they make those theaters very cold in there, so it gets kind of cozy on those nice leather seats and all.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly. Yeah. And it's funny because I kept thinking to myself, well, if theaters open in New York City, will I be comfortable going? And I think that I live right by 86th Street. Am I comfortable going to 86th Street? No, those theaters, before when I was going, I felt disgusting sitting in those seats that I've probably been farted in a million times.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like, though that was a gross theater. So I probably wouldn't go there to that AMC, but there are theaters like Cine Bistro on 61st Street, which are brand new. They have the reclining chairs and they serve alcohol and they have like a full menu. And it was only there for like a year before it closed. So I would 100% go there. And and they were on it. Those people were sanitizing. They were, so it's funny. I thought about that the other day. Like, which theaters will I be comfortable going to?
Oh, no, the Cineplexes, I think the big Cineplexes, I would still go to. Like AMC and I have Regal and a Cinemark over here. Absolutely, I would go. I just, for my thing is just, I want to be able to go Friday nights. I want to go opening night. And that's what I want. It's like, I can't have it any other way. Yeah. But, oh my God, I'm so like, I'm hoping Christmas Day. There's a couple movies still scheduled to come out. I'm hoping they stay on the schedule. Otherwise, we have to wait till January. I guess the only thing I can take as a positive out of it is that the schedule, that's the other thing I don't understand, is why the movie schedule, why everybody decided to push off. Take some chances, people, because that you're going to stagger that schedule now. It's going to be so crowded next year. Next year's movie season is going to be phenomenal because there's just so many blockbusters they pushed off. I'm like, you're going to give us like a summer and spring of blockbusters. I'm like,
we're not going to know what to do.
I'm going to have to go double time on movies like Friday and Saturdays. I'm going to have to go like Friday, Saturday night, just nonstop. But at least it's going to come back. And at least I got a little taste of it. And, I'll find a way. But I do agree with you with the independent movies. I need to go catch more of those. Just like I said, the attention span's kind of tough. Now, I want to take it with a positive part here. I want to get us back to a positive spin as we wrap things up. Yeah. Because I absolutely agree with you that, the creativity, the people that are creative, that are able to go and put themselves out for performances, it is interesting. Now, CBS New York recently put out a report, WCBS TV, The city's alive again, they report, with all kinds of performances from Manhattan to Queens. Talented actors and actresses have been hitting the streets, bringing New Yorkers new kinds of entertainment. They refer to the return of Broadway, being heard along the waterfront in Astoria as actors and actresses took to the stage for a drive-in, socially distanced live performance of Phantom of the Opera mixed in with the movie itself. At the Kimberly Hotel in Midtown, a touch of Broadway was brought to guests dining on the rooftop, while 3 miles away in Washington Square Park, a theatrical walking tour was taking place. So some entertainers have been finding some creative compromise, Lauren. And talk to me about, you told me a little bit what you've been hearing, but in that same realm, what have you been seeing out there that you've caught yourself? You did tell me about what you did catch. What other things have you heard about that New York City residents are being entertained by now to kind of give that sense of the entertainment that they're missing?
Well, you see a lot of established Broadway stars offering a lot of classes over Zoom. I've noticed that. I think there's something called Broadway Plus, where they offer, a singing lesson or a not like a TED Talk, but you know what I mean. I think the other day it was Laura Osnes. And again, these are things that normally you probably wouldn't get to experience if we were not in a global pandemic. She's got a huge cult following. She's like a Disney princess, a Broadway star. And again, you wouldn't get to see someone like her and have something personalized for you if this wasn't happening. So they're finding other outlets. And I don't know what that place is called. It's not coming to me, but there is like a drive-in theater stage in Astoria. I think it starts with an R that you just mentioned. I don't know if you know what it's called. But they've had a couple press releases that I've been getting saying, oh, it's opening night for, whatever they're doing at this like drive-in in Astoria, but it's like a stage as well. I'd have to find it, but I thought that was super cool. Are you finding it?
I'm trying to look for it right now. I'm trying to see if I can find out what it's.
Yeah, I know. It's totally, I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah, I can't find out the bat. That's okay. Oh, Radio Park.
Okay.
Is it Radio Park?
I think that's it.
There we go. New York. Yeah, I'm seeing that story right now. It's a new Broadway themed theatrical drive-in. That's the one. Okay. I'll send you a link to that. So yeah.
Yes. What did they just do?
That's the one I mentioned that did Phantom of the Opera. That is the one that did it. Yeah, that's the one. And 50,000 square feet, open air, cultural. So they did a thing where they actually had performances. Broadway stars also had 11-piece orchestra. So they did put something out there that was quite interesting. I like that.
And they did. So there was Purple Rain.
Correct.
This was last Thursday. I'm reading this press release that I got. And it's funny, I couldn't believe it because it said 6 p.m. press check-in, 6:15, the carpet begins, and 7 p.m. performance begins. So I think part of me was like, is this really happening? I didn't even believe it, so I did not respond. But on the guest list, they had people like Titus Burgess, Marty Gould Cummings, Condola Rashad from Billions. So there was like a fair amount of people on this list, but it says Radio Park is a brand new Broadway-centric drive-in movie experience featuring live performances at Hallett's Point's Play, a 50,000. Yeah, you just said that. Okay.
There we go.
So yeah, it features the big screen, movie-style concessions, food trucks, and more.
And $75 a group. That's not that bad.
No, I mean, again, I haven't been there yet, but I mean, maybe it's worth checking out.
And you have a view of the East River and the Manhattan skyline. I'm looking at a picture right now. It is cool.
Now I'm kicking myself. I totally should have gone. It's also just like, I don't know, maybe it was raining that night. I don't remember.
Could be, because the weather is, I imagine the weather's gotten a little bit better. The fall and the leaves have all come to the ground, so it's not bad.
It's been weird, the weather. Like, it's been cold and it's been hot, and it's strange. But
I know, whatever comes from New York, we get all the rain clouds because it's either cold, stationary, something or other. It just becomes rain for us all fall long. So that's what happens to us.
Totally.
So, Lauren, I really love that you've been on with us. I am so really thank you for taking time to go and talk to us today on the Broadcasters Podcast. Now, website for the Red Carpet Rendezvous, your weekly podcast is onthecarpet.com. What a great URL. And also available all major podcast portals. I see you're on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and so many others, I'm sure. The marketing firm is Magic Shack, MAGICSHAK.com. Real quickly, for those that want to learn about Magic Shack, tell us about what you're doing there and how they can also get involved there.
So we do performance marketing videos. again, we do everything from Broadway to corporate. So we'll host a Broadway opening night. We'll put together a video of, why people should see it. And then, the PR company and the theater company can push it out there. And same goes for corporate, why people should work at your company, or if you have sort of anything that you want to do in terms of marketing for your business. We are here and we are ready to go with video. So it's a great time. I really, really enjoy what I do.
Fantastic. And then finally, just for our listeners, and how can they go ahead and also keep up with how they can learn about what you're working on and how they can stay connected with you, say, social media?
My Instagram is probably the best place. It's at Lauren_interviews.
Fantastic. Lauren Conlin, again, entertainment reporter, host of the Red Carpet Rendezvous podcast. What day does that show normally drop?
Wednesdays.
All right.
It drops.
And again, on thecarpet.com is where you find the show. Lauren Conlin, thank you so much for being on with us. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. It was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
Next week here on the Broadcasters Podcast, I will begin a 2-part interview with actress, singer, dancer, and producer Stephanie Andujar. Just to give you a little bit of idea what she's done, she's actually performed in theatrical productions of The Wiz and The Crucible, has appeared on fan favorite TV series like Blue Bloods, Law and Order SVU, and was Little Rosa in Orange is the New Black on Netflix, and also starred in the award-winning film Precious. And she's actually moving on and actually has been working on her own projects, doing comedy and singing and so much more, really expanding on her talents, if you will. We talk all about that with Stephanie Andujar, also based in New York City. We'll talk to her in a 2-part interview. Really great information I got with her. It really was fun to talk to her. I'll start that interview coming up next week here on the Broadcasters Podcast. Until then, remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.
Thank you for listening to the Broadcasters Podcast, presented by BroadcastersPodcast.com and KingofPodcasts.com. The Broadcasters Podcast is brought to you by KingofPodcasts.com/Amazon. If Amazon is good enough for the King of Podcasts, it most certainly is good for you. KingofPodcasts.com/Amazon. And don't forget to check out the King of Podcasts wrestling program, The Wrestling is Real podcast, exclusively at KingofPodcasts.com.